Collier was 11 when he heard his mom being murdered by his own father.
Police say she was struck on the head and suffocated with a plastic bag.
A child's testimony.
I heard a thud.
A hidden body.
My father had rented the jackhammer days before the murder happened. It was completely premeditated.
A pregnant mistress.
Sherry showed up at his house right after his mother went missing.
A search for answers.
I was determined to find out what happened to my mother and put my father in prison for life.
If he would have a prison alive, would he be okay if he was granted parole?
I did not kill Noreen.
This is a psychopath.
I did not kill Noreen.
This is a psychopath.
Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard crimes.
Stand by. Let's bounce her down.
Today's going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4,
You will not be given up on you. On New Year's Eve, 1989, 11-year-old Collier Landry kissed his mother goodnight and went to bed. He had no idea it was the last time he would ever see her alive. Collier says he woke up about 3 a.m. and heard screams and loud thumps in the night. When he went looking for his mother in the morning, she was gone. He says his father told him Mommy went on a little vacation.
He says his father
but Collier
told
knew
him
his mother hadn't
Mommy
gone
went
on
on a
any
little
vacation.
But Collier
He soon
knew his mother
realized that
hadn't
what
gone
he
on
heard
any
that
vacation.
night were actually
He
the
soon
sounds of his
realized
mother
that what he
being
heard
murdered
that night
by his
were
father.
actually the sounds
What
of his
unfolded
mother
next
being
was the
murdered
trial of the
by
decade.
his father.
A pregnant
What
mistress,
unfolded
a
next
hidden
was the
body
trial
buried
of
under the
decade.
floorboards
A
of a
pregnant
secret
mistress,
home,
hidden
and a
body
little boy
buried
who
under the
became the star
floorboards of a
witness
secret
in the
home,
murder case against
and
his
a little
own
boy
father,
who
Dr.
became the
John
star
Boyle.
witness in the
More
murder
than 2
case
decades
against his
after
own
his
father,
testimony
Dr.
helped
John
convict
Boyle.
his father of
More
murder,
than 2 decades
Collier
after
Landry
his testimony
decided
helped
to
convict
go
his
back
father
home.
of murder.
He wanted to face his
Collier
past
Landry
and face
decided
his father
to go
behind
back home.
bars.
He wanted to face
He
his
went back to
past
get
and face
answers
his
that he
father
had
behind
waited
bars.
for his entire
He
life.
went back to get answers
The result
that
was
he
a
had waited
documentary called
for his
A
entire
Murder
life.
in Mansfield.
The result was a documentary called A Murder
It is a
in
case that
Mansfield.
residents in Mansfield and Central Ohio won't soon forget.
It is a case that residents in Mansfield
It
and
was a
Central
story that
Ohio
consumed
won't
the
soon
town.
forget.
It was a kind of a frenzy.
It
People
was a story
wanted to
that
know about this. It
consumed
was like
the
they
town.
had to
It
know
was a
about it.
kind of a frenzy. People
Noreen
wanted
Boyle's
to know
car
about
is
this.
still
It
in
was
the
like they had
driveway,
to
not
know about
moved
it.
since a cold December 31st, when police say here in the Boyle home, she was struck on the head and suffocated with a plastic bag. Dr. John Boyle was charged with murdering his wife, a murder their 11-year-old son and 3-year-old daughter may have heard.
A murder their 11-year-old son and 3-year-old daughter may have heard. I heard a scream coming from my
Noreen
sister.
Boyle's
I
body
heard
was
a
found
thud.
buried under fresh cement and new carpet beneath the
Noreen
basement
Boyle's
floor.
body was found
I
buried
absolutely
under fresh
believe Dr.
cement and
Boyle
new carpet
committed the
beneath
crime when
basement
we found the
floor.
body under the basement floor.
The two had been high school sweethearts and had been living a sweet life. To outsiders, suddenly Boyle closed up shop, moved in with his younger pregnant girlfriend, and his wife disappeared.
The
Boyle case is not only real, it's real close to home for many of the viewers. Courthouse employees manage their lunch breaks to stay right up to the minute on the story that's sweeping through every county office.
Boyle's son testified in that trial that he heard his mother and father fighting, and that his father told him his mom had taken a vacation.
And one of the prosecution's key witnesses, the Boyle son Collier, just 12 years old at the time of the trial, the little boy testified about hearing his mother scream the night she was murdered.
The little boy testified about hearing his mother scream the night she was murdered.
I was just looking for her bed or anything. And then my father came up and my eyes were filled with tears.
The more I investigated the case, the more empathy I felt for Collier. He was just lost. And he was a very intelligent young man and was very helpful to the case.
I did not kill Noreen. I never harmed her at all.
A jury found Boyle guilty of murder.
We, the jury in this case, find the
jury found
defendant,
Boyle
John
guilty
F.
of
Boyle
murder.
Jr., guilty of the offense as charged.
He was convicted of suffocating his wife, wrapping her body in a tarp, and entombing it under the newly carpeted basement floor of his Erie, Pennsylvania mansion.
The doctor was sentenced to life in prison.
While the headlines may focus on the sensational murder trial on Hawthorne Lane, the tragedy is simple and direct. Noreen Boyle is dead.
The tragedy is simple and direct. Noreen Boyle is
Well,
dead.
Collier, this must all be surreal to go relive all this and go back through it. What was the hardest thing about revisiting this time in your life?
What was the hardest thing about
Well, I feel,
revisiting this time
to be
in
honest
your
with you,
life?
I wanted to do this documentary.
To be honest with you,
I wanted to
do this documentary.
go back and get the answers that I wanted from my father.
How did your mother feel about this?
Get the answers that I wanted from my father.
I think my mother would be really proud of what I did because for me, I never wanted her to have a legacy that was in vain. I wasn't going to let that be the final chapter.
When you did this, you filmed a lot of first here. And I want to take a look at how this unfolded because the courage, and I want to take a look at how I don't want to embarrass you here, but the courage you showed, it's hard for people to put themselves in the shoes of a child having to stand up against a father figure and actually speak out and give a voice to that. And what captivated people most about Dr. John Boyle's murder trial was the chilling testimony from a little boy who stared down his father in court and helped put him behind bars for life. Well, let's take a look at 12-year-old Collier on the stand.
Let's take a look.
You said you went to bed about 9 o'clock on December 30th. You said you went to bed about 9 o'clock. Did anything happen during the course of that night that woke you up?
I woke up around 3:15 a.m.
How do you know it was that time?
Because as I woke, I looked at the clock, and it says between 3 and 3:15 a.m. I looked at the clock,
Okay,
and
now,
it says between 3 and 3:15
you woke at that time. Is there any reason why you woke up rather than just stay there and sleep?
Because I heard a scream coming from my sister. And the immediate thought I had was something was wrong with my mother. About a little while later, maybe about 3 minutes, maybe, I heard a thud.
Could you describe this sound
I heard
for us?
it was about this loud.
Okay, could you describe this sound for us?
And then about a minute and a half later, I heard, or I mean half a minute later, I heard a thud like this. Half a minute later, even louder. I heard a thud like this. And at that time, I was petrified. Even louder. I was just scared. And at that time, I was petrified.
All right, now, did you get up at that time to investigate what had happened?
No, I did not.
And did you tell the jury why you didn't investigate what had
Because I was
happened?
extremely afraid of my father.
And could you tell the jury why you didn't?
Because I was extremely
Now, did
afraid
there
of
come
my
a time
father.
that
I
you
always
got up
have.
next morning and looked for your mother? Okay, now, did
Yes,
there come
it
a
was
time
around
that you got up
8:30 in the
next
morning.
morning and looked for your
And I
mother?
got up and I ran immediately to my mother's room, and I noticed the covers were pulled back like a body had been taken out or something, or a way my mother
Covers were pulled back like a body had been taken out or something.
And so I went downstairs and I said, "Where's my
Get
mother?"
out of bed.
To my father, and he said, "Well, Mommy took a little vacation, Collier."
To my father,
And
he
then
said,
I just,
"Well, Mommy took a little
I
vacation, Collier."
didn't know what to say. I was just,
And then I just,
and so I said, and he said she'll be back in a few days, and then she just left.
So I said,
When was the last time you spoke with your mother?
It was around the night of
When was the last time
December
you spoke
30th.
with your mother? Well, right before you went to bed?
Yes.
That
December
was the last
30th.
time you really saw your mother, is that correct?
Yes.
By the way, you'll be able to see a lot more of this documentary airing on Investigation Discovery on November 17th at 9 p.m. And let me tell you, it is so well done, PM. It was really compelling. What's it like to watch yourself on the stand?
I had never ever seen the trial footage, ever. I had never seen this trial footage. And I was looking at myself going, who's this kid?
Your father's in the room while this is happening. Is he looking at you? Are you looking at him when this is going on?
I literally stared him down the whole time. And he would not look at me. He would sometimes look up, but every time I looked, he looked down. And at that moment, every time I looked, he looked down. There was a lot of satisfaction. At that moment, as horrific as it is to testify at a trial of your mother's murder, it's even worse that it had to be your father who you're testifying against. But for me, I knew what I was doing was the right thing to do. So I knew what I was doing was the right thing to do. I was angry. I was angry. I was hurt. I was confused. But I knew the truth. I was angry. And the satisfaction that I got from going up there and testifying against him was, I can't tell you how gratifying that was, despite the tragedies and the tragic circumstances that I was going through.
Well, on the outside, Collier's family looked picture perfect. Well, on the outside, what was happening behind closed doors that led to murder? And later, Collier confronts his dad behind bars more than 2 decades after the crime. Will he finally admit the truth?
More than 2 decades after the crime. Will he finally admit the truth? We'll be right back.
She was afraid for her life because she told me that about a month and a half before that. She was afraid, if I ever disappeared, Daddy probably killed me. A month and a half before that. Said,
and later, Dr. John Boyle was sentenced to life in prison. This is a psychopath.
Dr. John Boyle
Did your father ever test you not to testify?
This is a psychopath. Did your father ever test you not to testify?
She says her husband's image is being used as catfish bait.
50 women have been caught.
The catfish knew details about our family.
They would have pictures from the inside of her home.
Could this man hold the answers?
You're not the male voice on the phone calls, right?
The answers.
You're not the male
Get ready.
voice
I think you've been getting played.
For an unexpected twist.
The
Get ready.
catfish.
I think
Yes,
you've been getting played.
For an unexpected twist. Then on Monday, a your custody battle.
Therapists recommended all parties stop videotaping.
You know that therapist was terminated.
The therapist didn't make those recordings. You did.
Dr. Phil.
The therapist didn't make those recordings. You did.
Dr. Phil.
Tell us what you did with your mom.
Usually we like to go shopping together
Tell us
and
what you did with your mom.
go out and watch a lot of movies, and we go to the grocery store together and rent movies and stuff like that.
So we go to the grocery store together.
We just have a lot of fun. We go
and stuff
all
like
kinds of
that.
different places.
You know, also drawing your attention here to your father, Dr. John Boyle. Did he spend time with you?
Not very much at all.
Compared to the time you spent with your mom, would you say you spent maybe how much percent with your dad and how much percent with your mother?
99% with my mother and 1% with my father.
99% with my mother
Collier
and 1%
Landry was
with my
just
father.
11 years old when his father murdered his mother.
Collier
As
Landry was just 11 years
lying in
old
bed
when his
listening.
father murdered
Now,
his
Collier
mother.
says
As
everyone
Collier
thought
lying
they
in
were the
bed
picture-perfect
listening.
family.
Now, Collier
His
says
father, a prominent
everyone
doctor,
thought
his
they
wife,
were
the
picture-perfect
perfect mother.
family.
But
His
behind
father,
closed
prominent
doors,
doctor,
Collier
his
says
wife,
it was
the
a
perfect
very
mother.
different
But
story.
behind closed doors,
There was
Collier
tension
says it was a
between
very
your father
different
and
story.
mother. What was going on
There
between the
was
two of
tension
them?
between
My father
your
was
father
very
and mother. What was
verbally
going on between the two of
and
them?
sometimes very physically
My
abusive
father was very
to both myself and my mother.
and
And one
sometimes
of the
very
things we talk
physically
about is
abusive to both
in the
myself
film
and
is
my mother.
he threw my dog
And
across
one of the
the
things we talk
living
about
room
is
into a wall
in the film
one
is
time.
he threw my dog
He had a very
across the
violent
living room
temper
into a
that
wall
would just
one time.
come on like that out of
He had a
nowhere.
very violent,
And to other people it
temper that would
seemed
just
like,
come
oh,
on
they
like
have
that
a
out of nowhere.
picture perfect life.
And to other people
But
it seemed like
that just wasn't the
they
case.
have a picture perfect
he
life.
had
But that just
he
wasn't
had a
the case.
mistress, as we find
He
out.
had
You had
he had a
actually met
mistress,
her.
as we find
How
out.
did that come to pass?
You
So
had actually
it was
met
around
her.
Memorial Day weekend
How
of
did that come to
1989.
pass?
So
And my father took me
it was
to
around
like a
Memorial Day
barbecue, like a
weekend
party.
of 1989.
That was at
And my father
her
took me to a barbecue,
parents'
like a
house.
party.
And my
that
father
was
told me,
at
oh, this is a
her,
patient of mine.
Parents' house.
They were walking
And
around
my
this
father
lake
told me,
that
oh,
was
this is
there,
a
and I saw
patient
my
of
father
mine.
put his arm around her
They
from
were
a
walking
distance.
around this lake that was
I
there,
thought,
and I saw my father put his arm
something's not
around
quite
her
right. And
from
then
a distance.
we left and he gave her a kiss on the cheek.
Something's not quite
It wasn't
right.
until
Then
Father's Day, a month
we
later,
left and he gave her a kiss on the
that
cheek. It wasn't
I went
until
with him to
Father's Day,
this
a
place
month
called the
later,
Suntan Factory. He was getting a suntan. She showed up
I went with
two
him to
remote
this
control
place called the
cars.
Suntan Factory. He was getting a suntan.
And for
She
my
showed
father
up
and I as gifts,
with two remote
she had a
control
ring
cars.
on that was
And
my mother's.
for my father and I as gifts,
And then I saw
she had a
him,
ring on
at the
that
time,
was
I
my
think I
mother's.
told my mother, he tongue
And
kissed
then
her.
I saw him.
But I saw him kiss her in a way that's not a friend or a patient. You know,
But I saw him kiss
and my
her
father
in a
then
way
asked
that's
me
not
to
a friend
lie
or a
about it.
patient.
And I did.
And my
that
father
night
then
when we went
asked
out
me
for
to
Father's
lie
Day,
about it.
I lied to my mother.
And I did.
And I got
that
so
night when we went out
violently
for
ill
Father's
that
Day,
night.
I lied
And
to
I
my
woke
mother.
up the next morning, I
And
was
I
playing
got
with that
so
remote control
violently
car.
ill that night.
And I just
And I
stopped.
woke up the
I
next morning,
walked
I
in.
was
My
playing
mother
with
was
that
sitting on
remote
her
control
porch.
car.
And I walked
just
in and I
stopped.
said, Mommy,
I walked in. My mother was sitting
I
on her
lied to you.
porch.
I'm sorry, but I
And
think
I
Daddy
walked
is
in and I
having
said,
an
Mommy,
affair.
I lied to you. I'm
And my
sorry,
mother
but I
knew
think
that.
Daddy is having an affair.
Collier knew for sure something was off.
And my mother knew
when,
that.
Sherry
Collier knew
showed
for
up.
sure
Take a look.
something was off.
Did there come a
when,
time that you
Sherry
were
showed
with
up?
your
Take a
father
look.
and he had to see Sherry Campbell?
Yes.
With your father and he got to see Sherry Campbell?
It was a Father's Day of last year. And my father asked me if I wanted to go with him to take it to
of
Suntan.
last year.
to the Suntan Factory or wherever it was. And when we got there, my dad got out and says, well, look who's here, it's Sherry.
When we got there, my dad got out and says, well, look who's here, it's Sherry.
Then I just was like disgusted. Then I turned to Sherry and I looked at her hand and she has a ring on. And I turned to her and I said, Sherry, my mother has a ring like that.
Did this affect you in any way?
Yes, it did, very emotionally.
Can you tell the jury how it affected you emotionally?
Yes, it did, very emotionally.
I was so close to my mother, I couldn't believe my father could do anything like that. I thought it was her ring, my mother's ring, because I knew that was a very special ring. I knew hardly anybody ever had a ring like that.
When you're testifying against your father, your mother is gone, you're now
testifying against your
a
father,
linchpin in putting your father in the penitentiary, so you know I'm going to walk out of here with no parent.
You know I'm going to walk out of here with no
sort of
parent.
challenging thing with that is the prosecution, literally, and Dave Messmore, they said, we don't need you. You don't need to testify. And I was like,
you don't need to testify.
There's absolutely no way you're talking me out of testifying, because I know what happened, and this.
There's absolutely no way
I
you're
was
talking me out of testifying,
very adamant about. This guy's not going to get away with this.
You say
adamant about
the night
this guy's not going to get away with this.
after your mom goes missing,
The night
Sherry,
after
your dad's
mom
mistress,
goes missing,
came over with a pork roast
your
she
dad's
had
mistress,
made. She did.
came
And
over
you said it was
with
just
a
like
pork roast
Insta
she
family,
had
like
made.
all of a sudden
And
mother's gone,
you said it was
she's
just like
there, big
Insta
happy
family,
family,
like all of a sudden
big dinner.
mother's
Did your
gone,
dad
she's
think
there,
that was
big happy family?
I mean, what did he say
big
to y'all
dinner.
about
Did
why
your
is
dad
she here?
think that was?
Well, no, she came to,
I mean, what did he
you know,
say
to
y'all
give us
about
dinner
why
and look
she
what wonderful
here?
things she did. And
Well,
I
no, she came
was
to,
not having it.
you know,
I'm
to
like,
give us
this,
dinner.
I don't want this
look what
woman. I
wonderful
don't want
things
to
she
be
did.
around this woman.
I was not
I
having
know
it.
this woman,
I'm like,
because
I don't
to
want this
me,
woman.
she's
I don't want to be
responsible for
around this
breaking up
woman.
my parents' marriage, because I didn't know my father was having affairs for years. Already I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to get in touch with police? Because my mother would never walk out on me. She's not missing. I know what I heard. I know she's not coming back. Finally, when the police started taking it seriously, when people were treating it as a missing persons case initially, when the uniformed officers came to the house to kind of see what's going on, I pulled one of them away and upstairs and I said, look, my mother would never leave. She is either dead or he's done something to her. She was afraid for her life because she told me that about a month and a half before that. She said, you know, if I ever disappeared, Daddy probably killed me.
Well, coming up, inside the secret home Collier's father purchased, did he buy a house planning to bury a body?
Collier's father
We'll talk about
purchased.
that next.
Did he buy a house planning to bury a body? We'll talk about that next.
These are. You sure you want to see these? Okay. These are. You sure you want to see these? Look here. Pictures of your mom.
Wednesday on an all-new Dr. Phil.
My mom has always been a border.
Wednesday on an all-new Dr.
I'm
Phil.
stepping in through my pieces.
As a child, there were times when you didn't even have a clean place to sleep.
Yeah, that's her perspective.
There are versions of the truth. There's either a sanitary room or there's not.
There are versions of the truth.
Wednesday.
There's either a sanitary room or there's not.
I was the lead detective on the Dr. John Boyle case. It was about 3 weeks until we found Lorraine. Dr. Boyle purchased a house in Erie. Doctor had asked the real estate agent if she knew what was under the basement floor, because he was thinking about lowering that so his son could play basketball down there, which is extremely bizarre. I obtained a search warrant for his house. We opened the door in the basement. One of the technicians found what he thought was fresh concrete on the wall. So we took sledgehammers and we started to excavate that. It took about 2 hours. And then we could see the tarp. As we pulled that out, then we found Noreen's body. She still had a Rolex watch on and a necklace.
She still had a Rolex watch on.
Well, that was lead investigator Dave Messmore. Now, he and his wife actually wanted to adopt Collier Landry, and they remain close to this day. Now, Collier was just 11 when he heard his mom being murdered by his own father. Now, for years, the only details he knew was what he heard that night. But decades later, his father figure, the lead investigator, showed Collier what actually happened to his mother that night. Take a look.
What actually happened to his
When I
mother that
eventually
night.
got a search warrant prepared We found a jackhammer and some indoor-outdoor carpet had been purchased by your father several days before the actual murder. And then we went into the basement. And he had put a large shelving up. And it took some time before we actually found some disturbance of the concrete.
And it took some time before we actually found some disturbance of the concrete.
Well, that's definitely got to go.
It took probably 3 hours to excavate that.
That's when you knew it was my long life.
Probably 3 hours to excavate that. That's when you knew it was my long life.
She had a plastic bag tied around her neck, and that was to ensure that there was definitely going to be a death.
And that was to ensure that there was definitely going to be a death.
And also, she had been subjected to blows to the back of the head with what may be a hammer.
Been subjected to blows to the back of the head with what may be a hammer.
It was done at least twice.
I never knew this.
It was done at least twice.
I never knew this. So it was very intentional.
No one make question about that.
So it was very intentional. No one make question about that. Yeah.
You sure you want to see these?
These are... You sure you want to see these with your pictures of your mom?
This is the next day. That's why the body has started to deteriorate so much.
That's why the body has started to deteriorate so much.
I know.
So was that the first time you found out exactly what happened?
So was that the
my
first
entire
time
life,
you found out
I would have
exactly
nightmares,
what
and
happened?
I had this sort of vision in my head of what my mother's body would look like, her face and all this. I had it haunted me. So when we were filming, we were at the Massmore's house, and my director, Barbara Koppel, they were going to go to the police station, look at the case file, and she looked at me and she said, "Collier, they were going to go to the police station, look at the case file, and she looked at me and she said, "Collier, the purpose of this film is to show vulnerability and to show that when you go through trauma, you can get through it." And I said, I'm going, I want to see those photos. Some people say that was really courageous of you. I just say, it's something I had to do. Some people say that was really courageous. It's about closing those doors, closing those chapters and moving through. Because through the trauma. Closing those doors, closing those chapters and moving through.
You said the day that they actually did the excavation.
You said the day that they actually did the excavation.
Did the dig and recovered her. You were in foster care.
It was my first night in foster care. They had literally yanked me out at about 7 o'clock in the morning that day. They had literally pack a bag, didn't get to say goodbye to my, didn't get any toys, didn't get anything, just throw some clothes in a bag. There's police and scanners and just throw some clothes in a bag. Crime scene, crime lab outside, a lot of things. And, you know, that was the last time I saw my dog. And, you know, it was the last time I saw my dog. I just yanked. And I had asthma, really bad asthma at that time in my life. I just yanked. And that night when I was in foster care, bad asthma at that time in my life. I had no idea what was happening. When I was in foster care, probably the worst asthma attack of my life. Where I was literally just probably the worst asthma attack of my life. Sitting there, I thought, I'm gonna die. I may just die. Sitting there, and the next morning I went to the hospital. I was ushered past with the honor. Remember they used to have newspapers and honor boxes. Ushered past the honor box, which had the headlines. Into the room, they gave me a breathing treatment. I was better. And then that is when they told me that Lieutenant Massmore found your mother. And then that is when they told me that Lieutenant Massmore found your mother.
And you had that asthma attack.
And she was dead.
At the time they were finding your mother.
Yeah.
You had that asthma attack.
Well, after his mother vanished, Collier's father insisted he had nothing to do with her death.
After his mother vanished, Collier's father insisted he had nothing to do with her death. Next, what he claimed happened to his wife.
Did you on or about December 31st of 1989 cause the death of
December 31st of 1989?
I did not kill Noreen. I never harmed her at all.
No, I did not. I did not kill Noreen. I never harmed her at all.
I believe Elizabeth was a witness.
A little girl who was recently adopted from Taiwan slept with Noreen most of the time.
She's only about 2.5 or 3 years old, so she couldn't testify in the trial. She did explain to me how when she was in bed, Guga's daddy, who would have been her brother's daddy in Taiwanese, came into the room and hit Mommy with something. She didn't know what. Then he took her out of bed and laid her on a sheet and rolled her up like a snowman. That was her description to me. And then took her out of the room. She demonstrated that to me in the home where she was staying.
She demonstrated that to me in the home.
Well, Collier Landry was just 12 years old when he became the star witness in the murder trial of his father, Dr. John Boyle. Now, his documentary with Oscar-winning filmmaker Barbara Koppel, A Murder in Mansfield, airs on Investigation Discovery on November 17th at 9 p.m. Prosecutors claim Dr. John Boyle murdered his wife and buried her in the basement of a secret house he purchased. But Collier's father testified that he was completely innocent.
But Collier's father testified that he was completely innocent.
State your full name, please.
For the record, for the benefit of the jury, state your full name, please. John Francis Boyle Jr. Do you have occasion to
Early morning of December 31st of
1989?
Yes, I was on
Early
the sofa
morning of December 31st of
in the family room,
1989.
and
Yes, I
Noreen
was
came
on the
down and
sofa
woke me up.
in the family room, and
She
Noreen
started
came down and woke me up.
Jack, Jack, Jack. And
She started hollering,
credit
Jack,
cards at me.
Jack, and
Did you leave the house then?
threw
Yes, she
credit
did.
cards at me.
So I walked down the
Did
driveway.
she leave the house?
I ran back to the
Yes, she did. So I walked down the driveway. I ran back to
table
the
that sits there in the family room. Put my glasses on and ran back again to see where she
table
was
that
going.
sits there in the family
What did
room.
you
Put my
see?
glasses on and ran
By the
back
time I
again
got
to see
there,
where
I
she was
saw
going.
Noreen get into
What
a
did you
car at
see?
the edge of the driveway.
By the time I got there, I saw
Left in
Noreen
that
get into a
car.
car
Left in
at
that
the edge of the
car.
driveway.
Did you
Left in
on or
that car.
about December
Left in that car.
31st of 1989
Did you
cause
on or
the death
about
of
December
Noreen Boyle?
31st of
No, I did not.
1989
I did
caused
not
the
kill
death of
Noreen.
Noreen
I never
Boyle?
harmed her at all.
No,
I
I
did
did
not
not.
hire anyone
I did
or
not
ask for
kill
counsel
Noreen.
or
I never
incite or
harmed her
anything
at all.
else like
I
that
did
to
not
take
hire
away from
anyone
Noreen
or
Boyle.
ask for counsel
Did
or
your father
incite
ever
or
talk
anything
to
else like
you
that to take
about
away from
testifying,
Noreen Boyle?
ask you not to
Did your father ever
testify,
talk to you about
discuss with you
testifying, ask you
your own
not to
trial at all
testify?
before you testified?
Discuss with you your
No,
own trial at all before you
I
testified?
only saw my father one time before the trial, and he was.
I only
I
saw
love
my
you, I
father
do
one
this,
time
that.
before the trial.
I don't even
and
think
he
I said
was,
2 words to him. I was
I love
so
you, I
angry,
do this,
so
that.
angry with
I
him.
don't even think I said 2 words to
It
him. I
wasn't
was
until
so
after I had
so
testified
angry with him.
that
It
my
wasn't
father went
until
on a
after
crusade
I
for
had
many
testified
years to try to get me
that
to
my
rescind my
father went on a
testimony or say
crusade
that I
for
was
many
lying,
years
or
to try to get me
they
to
sent
rescind my
investigators to what
testimony
became
or
my
say that I was
adopted
lying,
home
or
to interview me
they sent
about
investigators
being
to what
coached
became my
by
adopted
the
home
prosecution, and
to
they
interview
put
me
things in your
about
head.
being
And I'm going,
coached by
no,
the
they
prosecution.
didn't, because
And, they put
I
things in
told
your
the truth.
head, and I'm going, no,
You were the
they
one
didn't,
that
because
actually tipped them
I
to
told
the
the
second
truth.
house where
You
your
were the
mother's
one
body
that
was
actually
found. How
tipped
did you
them
know
to the
about
second
that?
house
So
where your mother's body was
I
found.
had
How did
seen
you
a
know about
photograph
that?
in my father's,
So,
little cubby
I
hole in
had
the truck,
seen a photograph
one of a
in my
house,
father's,
and one of
little
Sherry's
cubby hole
family
in the truck,
of her
one of a
kids, 'cause she had
house,
kids
and
from a
one of
previous marriage,
Sherry's
sitting in
family
front of the fireplace.
of her kids, 'cause she had
And it
kids
was,
from a
like there
previous
was
marriage,
plastic on the
sitting in front of
fireplace,
the
so it struck me as
fireplace.
being there was something
And it
new,
was-
but
it was like
I'd
there was
never seen this
plastic on
house
the
before, and I had
fireplace,
told
so
Dave
it
Messmore
struck me
about
as
this
being
house. I said, I don't know
something
where it
new,
is,
but I'd never seen this
I
house
found
before,
these
and I told
photos.
Dave Messmore about
And we
this
now
house. I said, I don't know where it
know
is, but
he in fact did have a
found these
second house,
photos.
and we now know
And we now
that he
know that
went
he in
and
fact did have a
rented a
second house, and we now
jackhammer.
know that
But
he
is that not just
went
incredibly
and
arrogant? I
rented a
mean, how do you,
jackhammer.
you go rent a
Is that not
jackhammer
just
and take it
incredibly
down and jack
arrogant?
up
I mean,
the
you-
floor and
You go rent a jackhammer
Well,
and
Dr.
take
Phil,
it down
if
and
you've
jack
not
up
had
the
the pleasure of meeting
floor.
my father, but my father is probably one of the most
Dr. Phil,
arrogant
if
people on the
you've not
planet.
had the pleasure of
So
meeting
he can,
my father, but my
he's
father
a
is probably
complete
one of the
total
most arrogant
narcissist.
people on the planet.
But it seemed like
So
a
he
blind
can-
man to
yeah,
follow
he's
that
a
trail.
complete
Exactly.
total narcissist.
And
Well, it seemed like the blind man to follow that trail.
over the years, the story changes, and it was an
Over
accident.
the
It
years,
was
the
this,
story
and-
changes.
But it's, Dad,
It was
you
an accident.
rented
It
the
was this.
jackhammer
But
3 or 4 days
Dad,
before
you
the murder
rented the
happened.
jackhammer
You bought the
3 or 4 days
AstroTurf a couple weeks
before the
before,
murder
because there's the
happened.
receipts from the
You bought
Kmart
the
that they used in the
AstroTurf
trial,
a couple
or the
weeks
green
before,
tarp that
because
you
there's the
wrapped her
receipts
up
from
in,
the Kmart
right?
that they used in the trial,
So
or the green
it was
tarp that you
completely
wrapped her up
premeditated.
in.
Coming
Right?
up, Collier confronts his father behind bars. He was looking for answers.
Collier
Did he get
confronts
them?
his father behind bars.
We'll be right back.
He was looking for answers. Did he get them? We'll be right back.
So what happened?
She picked up a knife, and she came at me with that knife, and so I pushed her. She picked up a knife. I pushed her, and she hit her head against that wooden floor table. I pushed her, and she hit her head against that wooden floor table. That's what happened. I'm telling you, that's what happened. That's what happened. I'm telling you, that's what happened.
Good evening, everyone. This was the moment of truth in Mansfield today.
Good evening, everyone.
We, the jury in this case, find defendant John F. Boyle Jr.
We, the jury in this case, find
as charged in the indictment.
The judge said he would tolerate no outbursts in the courtroom, but they cheered in the hallway when Dr. John Boyle was found guilty of killing his wife, Noreen.
They cheered in the hallway when Dr. John Boyle was found guilty of killing his wife,
Dr. John Boyle was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his wife, Noreen.
Dr. John
All
Boyle
Collier
was sentenced to
has
life in
ever
prison
wanted
for the
from
murder
his
of
father
wife,
was for him
Noreen.
to admit
All
the
Collier has
truth
ever
about
wanted
what
from
he
his
did
father
to
was
his
for
mother.
him
So
to
he went to the
admit
prison
the truth
to get
about
answers.
what he did to his mother. So he went to the prison.
So what happened?
To get answers.
Well, I told you I was
So what
where I
happened?
slept all the time.